Hi, I'm Nisha Poddar, and you're watching Too Sharp with ET. Now, today we are tracking two important stories. First, a dramatic legal flip-flop in Washington has really brought Donald Trump's controversial tariff back into play. Remember, just one day after a federal trade court had struck them down. And the second, India quietly opens the floodgates for Saudi billions. A major policy exemption has just made it easier for Riyadh's sovereign wealth funds to pour more money into the Indian markets. Let's begin with the legal roller coaster that we are seeing in the US. In a fast moving reversal, a US appeals court has reinstated President Donald Trump's sweeping April 2nd tariffs barely 24 hours after a lower court, remember, had ruled them unconstitutional as well as illegal. Now, here's what happened. On Wednesday, the U.S. Court of International Trade ruled that Donald Trump had exceeded his authority under the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act, also known as IEEPA. Now, that law was designed primarily for urgent national threats, not for long-standing trade deficits. A three-judge panel ruled that Trump had declared a national emergency without any cause and criticized the White House for using this particular act to bypass the Congress. So this was the issue. But just a day later, on Thursday, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit issued a temporary stay on that particular ruling. Now, that means that Trump's tariffs are legally back in force, at least for now, while the government files a formal appeal. Now, the tariffs announced on what Trump really dubbed them as Liberation Day hit nearly all the major trading partners, including Canada, Mexico, China, as well as even the EU. And they are being challenged in at least 7 separate court cases. Now, in a fiery social media post Thursday night, Trump called the trade court's decision a direct attack on presidential powers, also mentioning that if allowed to stand, this would really destroy the presidency, and the world is cheering except America, he said. His former trade advisor, Peter Navarro, he doubled down, saying that the administration is already exploring alternative legal routes, such as other sections like 301, 232, or even two rarely used laws from the 1930s and 1970s that still allow presidents to impose tariffs under certain conditions. Even if we lose this case, we will just do it another way, Navarro told the reporters. Now, the financial markets and the repercussions have been huge. They have initially welcomed the trade court ruling, but the mood quickly turned cautious after the appeals court stay on this matter. Now, if the trade court's order had been held, Oxford Research estimates that the US effective tariff rate would have dropped to about 6%, down from 15% today. Meanwhile, major companies are feeling the heat already. GM and Ford have withdrawn their financial forecasts because a lot of changes have happened and uncertainty remains. Honda, Campari, and some of the others are reportedly considering relocating their operations to the US. Diageo has warned of disruption in disrupted global supply chains. While the US grapples with tariff chaos, India just made a bold move to attract capital, and it involves one of the world's wealthiest investors, Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund. We'll talk about that. In a big move, according to Reuters, New Delhi has granted the 925 billion Saudi sovereign wealth fund an exemption from a rule that restricts the amount of foreign investments in the Indian companies. Now, under the current norms, remember, all the sovereign-linked investments are clubbed together and capped at 10% ownership in any Indian firm. But now, the Public Investment Fund, or the PIF, and its subsidiaries can invest independently without being grouped under one ceiling. This is a big move. This exemption gives Saudi Arabia the freedom to deploy significantly more capital across India and Indian equity markets, particularly, remember, in infrastructure, energy, and pharmaceuticals. It also comes on the back of, remember, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's April visit to Riyadh, where both sides reaffirmed a plan for $100 billion in Saudi investment into India. Now, currently, the Saudi fund has approximately $2.8 billion invested in India, with stakes in Jio platforms as well as Reliance Retail. But with this new exemption and the ongoing negotiations for a bilateral investment treaty, Saudi investment in India would really surge dramatically. And we do need the foreign money. Also, markets are driven by FIIs. Both the countries have strategic goals, remember. India wants long-term capital from energy-rich Gulf nations, while Saudi Arabia wants access to fast-growing economies as part of its Vision 2030 diversification plan. Well, with that, it's a wrap on Too Sharp with ET. Goodbye.